sharing with you in this video how to make conscious decisions and take back your free will so that you can start to be the person that you really want in your life. Because here's what I really believe is that we walk through life and we really give away our power. And what I mean by power is our decision-making power, our ability to think for ourselves and to have independent thinking. How many times in your day do you make decisions for somebody else, just for that person, just for them, not for you? How often do you overly people please and you're not thinking about yourself and you're there just to make other people happy, just for them? And I'm not saying that, being selfless is bad. I'm not saying that by any means. In fact, so many people are too selfish and they need to be more selfless. But what I think is that if we walk through life and we only do things for other people, I think that we're giving away our conscious decision-making power to think for ourselves and to really have what we can call free will. And if there is such a thing as free will, it's not going to be by living life in anger and resentment and resistance, believing that you have to do things for other people. I'm not saying that you can't do things for other people from a place of true selflessness, where you're doing it from your heart because you want to. But if you believe that you have to, and you're giving away a piece of your soul and your essence in a negative way to make that happen, what's happening is that you're almost becoming like, you can look at it almost like if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, where you become like almost a puppet just to feed someone else's vision. And I don't know how that sounds, that's not necessarily the case, but it's almost like you're giving life force to a vision that you don't resonate with. And I'm going to be sharing with you in this video how not to do this so that you can be a person that makes more conscious choices and be the person that you actually want to be, not what other people are sort of projecting you to be and have a desire for you to be that you don't want to be. And the first thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to actually do this and how to make conscious decisions and take back your free will is a very, very simple concept, but it is simply to have spaciousness. And it's so simple that we can neglect the power of it. So spaciousness, what it really means is just to have spaciousness between you and your thinking. And it sounds so simple. It's such a simple concept that what happens is that we forget how powerful it is because, well, how often do you let an emotion pull you? How often do you let an emotion make decisions for you instead of thinking more logically and taking a step back from the emotion and the heat of the moment? Because oftentimes we make decisions based on the heat of the moment and a negative situation, and these negative situations are based on traumas of the past, negativity of the past, and negative stories about things that have already happened. They have not a lot to do with that vision for the future that you want, but a lot of negative situations and negative beliefs and usually past beliefs that are out of alignment with who you want to be. So if you're making decisions grounded upon things that have happened in the past that you don't resonate with, oftentimes what you'll find is that you lack spaciousness in that moment. So instead of me telling you how to be more spacious and giving you a technique, well, becoming aware of when you weren't spacious is a great way to start. Because, if you can walk through life and start to be aware when this happens and catch yourself, that's how you become more spacious, is noticing when you're not. Noticing when you're not spacious. So if you're noticing when you're not spacious and you're making these decisions and you're starting to feed into more negativity and feed into things that you don't like to feed, that's when you want to pull back and become more spacious and see what's happening in an objective way, in a more neutral way. And think, what choice can I make that's going to be more conscious and more grounded in a more stronger intelligence, to say it in a better way. What can be a more intelligent choice in this moment? What can be something that leads me to make a choice that actually assists in my highest self and assists in me becoming better? What's the best choice that I can make? And so this is what I mean by spaciousness, is to live life in this way. Now, the second thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to make conscious decisions and take back your free will is to understand that really what I believe stops free will is unconscious attachment to thinking. So unconscious attachment to thinking creates a lack of free will. That's what I really believe, is that if you want to look at what creates a lack of free will, is when you lose spaciousness and you have that unconscious attachment to your train of thinking. So that's a person that's not consciously making choices. And again, the best way that I think to do this is to look at when you're actually not being conscious. And of course, the problem lies is that while this is happening, you're not going to admit to yourself that you don't have spaciousness. You're not going to admit to yourself that you're attached to your thoughts, or that you're pointing fingers, or that you're upset. If you point to a person that's upset, that they're upset, they're going to tell you, I'm not upset. They're going to say, no, I'm not upset, you're wrong. They're not going to listen to you. And so that's not going to work. So the best thing you can do is to be aware that you're not going to really agree with that situation. Even if somebody tells you, you might disagree. Even if somebody tries to write it down for you on paper, you might disagree in that moment if you're attached to your thinking. So what we need to do here is to be honest with ourselves, have a certain level of self-reflection and self-honesty, where we can start to become conscious more when we lose ourselves in these emotional outbursts. And when you're making decisions from that place, remember that, in my personal opinion, you don't have a lot of free will. You don't have a lot of free will, because if you want to have free will, or more of what that would look like, do we really have free will? Do we not have free will? We'll save that for another video. Let's just assume we can get closer to that. How would you get closer to that if there was such a thing? You would need to take more spaciousness, pull back from the conditioning of society, and be in solitude, be with yourself. And we could always argue that, yes, being by yourself is also going to be influenced by conditioning. You could also argue that everything is connected. So where did you even get any of your thoughts? You got it all from somewhere else, and you picked it up from your family and books and external things, right? Of course. But it's like, if we were going to get as close as possible to what could be called free will, I think that it would be in solitude and isolation, and remembering that you need to make decisions for yourself and take spaciousness. And you don't necessarily need to be in solitude, actually, but you need to have a lot of spaciousness between you and your thinking. You need to have a lot of spaciousness between what's happening, between you and what's happening around you and your thoughts. Because you have to have that observing presence and see that distinction between who you really are as the observing presence of consciousness and then the things that are happening to you in your thought process and your emotions that come about that. So just remember in your life that what stops free will from happening? Unconscious every single time you unconsciously attach to your thinking and the emotions that come from that, make decisions from that, you are not living from a space of free will. Just try to really embody that as much as possible. And I think that that's what's going to help us to make more conscious decisions. And so the final thing that I want to share with you in this video, although it might seem kind of disconnected from what I'm saying, I really want to, reassure you that it is connected. And the truth is that I think that there's 3 places we can live our life. And I'm just going to show you here an example of what I mean, which is that, we can live in our, first of all, as you can see here, we can live in our safety zone, which I think that is a problem. We can be in our discomfort zone, which is the middle zone, which is in the middle way. Some cultures call it the middle way. I think that that's the perfect place to be. We'll get more into that in just a second here. And then lastly, you can be in the danger zone, which is a huge problem, because if you're in your danger zone, you can be in a state of too much trauma, too much resistance, too much negativity coming up to the surface, where you don't even feel like you're changing anymore, because you're actually, what's happening is that you're changing actually so much. You're changing so much to the point where now what's happening is that you can't even change at all. It's almost like, imagine if somebody was to go lift way too much weight that they've never lifted before, like 500 pounds, they've never done that before, and they think that they're going to get a good result from that. No, what's going to happen is that you're going to make a fool of yourself, you're going to probably injure yourself, and you're going to leave that situation in your danger zone. Now, on the other end, if you just stay in your safety zone and you do nothing, 0 physical activity, and you do nothing with your day, of course, that's not going to get any results either, if that's the results that you're looking for. And you can apply that analogy. It's very obvious to look at it from a physical viewpoint, but it can be a mental thing as well. Because if you're in any context, whether mental or physical, if you're in your safety zone, that's a problem. If you're in your danger zone, that's a problem. If you're working too hard, that's going to be a problem. If you're doing nothing with your time, that's also going to be a problem. But if you find that perfect balance where you're balancing comfort and discomfort, and you're realizing that the true power and true success is living in alignment with your identity and choosing to be a person that you want to be and living in alignment with that identity that you choose for yourself. If you're starting to realize that that's really the essence of success, then you're really going to be able to make much more conscious decisions and take back your free will, because you're going to understand that life is just about choosing an identity and then living between comfort and discomfort and not attaching to either, because it's just about choice. It's about commitment. It's not about feeling comfortable or uncomfortable. It's not about being so comfortable that you feel, you're going to feel uncomfortable from that eventually, of course. And it's not about feeling so uncomfortable to the point where you're in misery as well. It's just about understanding that you want to find the middle point, that middle point energy. What is middle point energy? It's you understanding that you're going to feel comfortable sometimes, you're going to feel uncomfortable sometimes. Sometimes you might feel a mix of both. You might be comfortably uncomfortable, but regardless of the case though, do you want to transform? That's a better question. I'm not really going to ask you in this video here, do you want to feel comfortable or uncomfortable? I'm going to ask you, do you want to transform? Do you want to be a conscious person that has a higher level of free will, if that was to exist, and to make conscious choices? Do you want to be that person? Or do you want to be somebody that 20 years goes by and you still have the same problems and challenges and you're still the same person? Because for me, that's a big shame, because if problems and challenges are going to happen no matter what, why not upgrade your problems and challenges to higher level problems where you get better results in your life and actually become the person that you want to be and create the vision that you want in the materialistic realm? There's nothing wrong with that. Spirituality and materialistic things do not have to be separate. Part of what I want to create in my videos here is to bring these two things together and to understand that spirituality and the physicality of life are not separate at all. They're interconnected completely. And if you want to honor the spiritual and the physical, then be in your comfort zone, be in your discomfort zone all the time. Be in that middle point. You should always be a little bit uncomfortable. Not in your danger zone, not in your safety zone either. Be a little bit uncomfortable all the time. Just a little bit uncomfortable. See, for example, if you use your left hand for the first time, that's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that's going to upgrade you. That's going to make you a little bit better. If you want to do that ever. In a way it will make you better. If there's other things that you can do as well that feel a little bit uncomfortable. Like when you learn to ride a bike for the first time, that was a little bit uncomfortable, right? It felt weird, it felt uncomfortable, but wasn't there a thrill and an excitement in that? Wasn't there a lot of fun in that process of learning? And similarly so, you want to find things that you're excited to upgrade in and to become better at, and be a little bit uncomfortable as you do it. It doesn't have to be always comfortable, and you also don't have to be in your danger zone. Just increase the weight just a little bit at the gym every single time you go. Increase the strength, the difficulty of the task that you're doing just a little bit every single time that you do it. Be a little bit better, 0.1%, just a little bit more every single day with whatever it is that you do. Put in a little bit more work, just be a little bit better. And then 20 years goes by and you're going to be a professional, and the person that had those emotional outbursts expecting strong results and never got any results, because strong emotional bursts for 2 to 3 days followed by multiple years of no action is not how you get a result. The way that you get a result is by actually taking consistent, slow action every single day for a long period of time until you've compounded those 0.1% improvements for a long period of time. That's what nobody wants to hear. Everybody knows that, but nobody wants to do that. Everybody knows what I'm saying, but nobody wants to do it. Everybody knows this to be the case, but nobody wants to put in the actual work. They just want instant gratification rather than delayed gratification. They want results today rather than results in 10 years. But it's like, if you want results today for 10 years, in 10 years, you're still going to be in that same place. You want results today, nothing happens in 10 years. But at least if you have a long-term goal, 10 years will go by and you're going to be better off, because you have always been in your discomfort zone and you're always going to be improving and you're always going to be having fun with life as well. So I invite and encourage you to stay in the middle. Stay in the middle in your life, stay in the discomfort zone, and watch that when you stay in that space, that's where magic happens. That's where transformation happens. That's where you become better. That's where you improve, and that's where you actually are a leader.